Casino is one of the greatest mob films ever made, but Martin Scorsese had to change the casino name. The real place was called the Stardust. For 5 years, something happened in that counting room that Hollywood could never put on screen. Money disappeared before anyone could count it. 4 mafia families got rich, and nobody could prove a thing until one man broke. That man would testify in 1982. To understand what he destroyed, you have to understand where the Stardust came from. The story begins with a bootlegger named Tony Cornero who wanted to build something bigger than anything Vegas had ever seen. He would die before opening night. And what rose from his unfinished dream would become the most profitable crime scene in American history. Antonio Cornero Stralla was born on April 22, 1895 in a small village outside Milan, Italy. His parents brought him to America in 1902 when he was 7 years old. The family settled in San Francisco where his father worked construction, and his mother took in laundry from wealthier families. Tony shared a bedroom with 4 siblings in a tenement that smelled like coal smoke and boiled cabbage. He did not speak English. The other kids called him names he could not understand yet. Tony learned fast. You had to if you wanted to survive. By 1920, Tony was 25 years old and prohibition had become the law of the land. Most people saw restriction. Tony saw opportunity. He started smuggling Canadian whiskey down the Pacific coast in speedboats. He was fast, clever, and ruthless enough to outrun Coast Guard cutters through fog banks and darkness. On a single run in June 1924, Tony transported 400 cases of Scotch whiskey from Vancouver to San Pedro Harbor. He paid $3,600 in Canada. He sold it to Los Angeles speakeasies for $36,000. He made $32,400 profit in 14 hours of work. The law caught up in November 1926. Federal agents arrested Tony on bootlegging charges. He served 3 years in Terminal Island, Federal Penitentiary. When he walked out in 1929, the stock market had crashed and prohibition was dying. Tony needed a new plan. In 1931, Nevada legalized gambling. Divine timing. Tony and his brothers Frank and Louie bought 12 acres on Highway 91 outside Las Vegas city limits. They paid $18,000 cash, money Tony had hidden from the feds. They built the Meadows Casino, one of the first 7 casinos ever licensed in Nevada. The Meadows opened in May 1931 with a dance floor, a bar, and 14 gambling tables. Tony wore a white dinner jacket and greeted every guest personally. For 6 months it worked. They were making $3,000 a week. Tony had enemies. Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky were organizing East Coast families into a national syndicate. They wanted tribute from every casino operator west of the Mississippi River. Tony refused. He had built the Meadows with his own money, his own sweat, his own risk. He was not paying protection to New York families who had never set foot in Nevada. On the night of November 14, 1931, fire broke out in the Meadows kitchen at 2:17 in the morning. By the time Tony arrived from his Las Vegas apartment, the entire building was engulfed in flames. He called the fire department. They told him the Meadows was outside city limits, no jurisdiction, no help coming. Tony stood in the dirt parking lot and watched everything burn. The tables, the bar, the cash, and the safe. Total loss, $78,000. Every dollar the Cornero brothers had in the world, gone. Tony learned 2 things that night. First, you cannot build anything in Nevada without mob blessing. Second, if you want to operate outside their control, you need to get creative. So Tony left Nevada and got creative. In 1938, Tony bought the SS Rex, a 300-foot ocean liner, for $50,000. He anchored it 3 miles off the Santa Monica coast beyond California territorial jurisdiction. California law could not touch him out there. The Rex could hold 2,000 gamblers at a time. Tony hired French chefs from Los Angeles restaurants, a 12-piece orchestra, and 120 staff members. Water taxis ran guests from shore for 25 cents each way. You stepped off that taxi into another world. Roulette wheels, craps tables, slot machines, a 60-foot mahogany bar. It was Las Vegas before Las Vegas existed. Tony made $200,000 a month during peak season. In Depression-era money, that was extraordinary wealth. Success made him a target. On September 3, 1938, Someone shot Tony in the abdomen at his Beverly Hills home. He barely survived. 3 months in the hospital, 2 surgeries, permanent nerve damage. The shooter was never identified, but investigators suspected East Coast mob figures who wanted California gambling under their control. California Attorney General Earl Warren declared war on the floating casinos. On May 20th, 1939, Warren sent armed agents on Coast Guard cutters to board the wrecks. Tony barricaded himself inside for 9 days with 300 guests and 120 crew members. They ran out of food, then water. Finally, Tony surrendered. The government seized the wrecks. Tony paid $3,800 in fines and walked away. His floating casino empire was finished. By 1946, he was done with California. He came back to Las Vegas. By 1954, Las Vegas had transformed. The Desert Inn, the Sands, the Sahara. Bugsy Siegel had proven casinos could be wildly profitable. Tony saw the future written in neon and concrete. He wanted to build something that would dwarf everything on the Strip, the biggest casino Las Vegas had ever seen. He bought 36 acres on Highway 91 north of the last frontier. He paid $650,000, money saved from the wrecks and some smaller ventures. Tony needed construction money. He started selling shares in his new project to investors across the country. He raised $6 million from dentists in San Diego, doctors in Phoenix, businessmen in Los Angeles, about 3,000 stockholders total who believed in his vision. Construction began in February 1955. The design called for 1,065 rooms, which would make it the world's largest hotel. The casino floor would span 16,000 square feet. The showroom would seat 850 people with hydraulic stages and a swimming tank. Tony called it the Stardust because he wanted something space-age and futuristic. By July 1955, construction was 3/4 complete. Tony had personally invested $3 million of his own money. Another 4 months, and it would open. Tony would not live to see it. July 31st, 1955. Tony Cornero walks into the Desert Inn Casino at 9:47 in the evening wearing a gray suit and carrying $8,000 in cash. He positions himself at craps table number 3. The dice are cold. Within an hour, Tony is down $12,000. At 11:23 in the evening, a dealer short changes him by $25 on a chip payout. Tony gets loud. His face turns red. He starts arguing with the pit boss about the count. Back and forth, voices rising, other gamblers turning to watch. At 11:31, Tony clutches his chest. His knees buckle. He collapses backward, hitting the edge of the craps table on his way down. A doctor rushes over from the blackjack tables, checks for a pulse. Nothing. Tony Cornero is dead before the ambulance arrives. Massive heart attack. He was 63 years old. Across the Strip, the Stardust sits 3/4 finished. A skeleton of concrete and steel. For 2 years, it stays frozen. Creditors file liens. Stockholders sue each other. The steel frame rusts. Pigeons nest in the unfinished showroom. Every casino operator in Las Vegas looks at the property and sees a money pit. Local papers run headlines calling it Cornero Folly and the casino that will never open. Jake Factor appears, brother of cosmetics magnate Max Factor, known as Jake the Barber because he once ran barbershops in Chicago. Jake was more than a barber. He had connections to the Chicago outfit, close relationships with Tony Accardo and Sam Giancana. In January 1958, Jake and his wife bought out all 3,000 stockholders for pennies on the dollar. Total purchase price, $4.2 million for a property that had already cost $9 million to partially build. Money started flowing. Workers returned. Contractors got paid. Construction accelerated. Years later, FBI documents would reveal that $3 million came from Chicago outfit boss Tony Accardo and his partner Sam Giancana. The money was laundered through Jake Factor legitimate businesses. In January 1958, all anyone knew was that the Stardust was being completed. July 2nd, 1958. The Stardust Hotel and Casino opens its doors. 1,065 rooms, the world's largest hotel. The casino floor spans 16,000 square feet. Room rates start at $6 a night. Opening night brings governors, senators, Hollywood celebrities. Lido de Paris debuts with 60 performers imported from France. topless showgirls in feathers and sequins. It is everything Tony Cornero envisioned. While guests admire the pool and showgirls, something else is being built. Something Tony never planned. In a locked room on the second floor sits the counting room. Every casino has one where cash from tables and slots gets sorted before bank deposit. The Stardust counting room has a special feature. After the official count is documented, select employees conduct a second count. Money from this second count goes into separate bags. These bags never appear in casino books. The money disappears before any one official can count it. Chicago gets the largest share. Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Cleveland split the rest. In the first full year, 1959, the Stardust officially reports $12 million in gaming revenue to Nevada regulators. The actual revenue, including skimmed amounts, is closer to $16 million. The difference, $4 million, vanishes into thin air. This continues for the next 15 years. Every night, money disappears from the counting room before any one official counts it. Sometimes $10,000, sometimes $50,000. On New Year Eve and Major Fight, weekends, as much as $100,000 in a single night. The FBI knows casinos are skimming. Everyone knows. Proving it requires documentation, and the beauty of the Stardust skim is that the money never appears on any document. In December 1974, everything evolves. Alan Glick, a 32-year-old real estate developer from San Diego, purchases the Stardust and Fremont casinos through his newly formed company, Argent Corporation. Purchase price, $62.75 million, financed entirely by the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund. On paper, this looks like a legitimate business transaction, a decorated veteran with a law degree buying Las Vegas casinos. In reality, it is a mob takeover disguised as a real estate deal. Glick gets the gaming licenses. His name goes on the paperwork. The casinos will be controlled by men representing Chicago, Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Cleveland families. Frank Lefty Rosenthal becomes the actual operator. He is a 45-year-old professional sports bettor with a photographic memory and a criminal record that bars him from holding a gaming license. His official title is Entertainment Consultant. Rosenthal runs everything. He installs the first sports book integrated into a casino floor. He creates comp programs that bring in high rollers. He adjusts table odds to maximize house advantage. Under Rosenthal management, the Stardust becomes even more profitable. The skim increases. Chicago outfit enforcer Anthony Spilotro uses violence to control skimmers, collect debts, and eliminate threats. For 5 years, 1974 to 1979, the operation runs perfectly. Money flows to 4 families. Everyone gets paid. Glick looks legitimate on paper. Rosenthal runs operations brilliantly. The FBI is watching. In September 1979, an accountant named Don Shepard walks into the FBI Kansas City field office carrying documents that show cash distributions from the Stardust to mob figures. Specific amounts, specific dates, specific recipients. Money that never appears on Stardust financial statements. FBI Special Agent David Mullen contacts field offices in Chicago, Milwaukee, and Cleveland. They compare notes. What looked like separate investigations connects to a single source, the Stardust counting room. In December 1979, the FBI installs surveillance on known mob associates in 4 cities. They tap phones. They follow cars. They photograph meetings. The pattern becomes clear. Money leaves Las Vegas and arrives in Chicago, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Cleveland. Same amounts, same routes, like clockwork. In May 1980, federal agents serve Alan Glick with a grand jury subpoena. He is ordered to testify about Argent Corporation operations and relationships with organized crime figures. Glick knows what this means. He goes to prison or he cooperates. There is no third option. In December 1981, Glick agrees to cooperate. Federal prosecutors offer immunity in exchange for testimony. Over 200 hours of interviews, he details everything. How the Teamsters loan was arranged. How Rosenthal actually controlled operations, how Spilotro used threats, how the counting room skim worked, who received money, and how much. On October 10, 1983, federal grand juries issue indictments against 19 defendants. Chicago boss Joseph Ayupa, Kansas City boss Carl Savella, Milwaukee boss Frank Balistrieri. Each faces maximum sentences of 20 to 40 years. Before the trials even begin, someone tries to kill Frank Rosenthal. October 4th, 1982. He leaves Tony Roma restaurant and gets into his Cadillac, puts the key in the ignition. A bomb explodes beneath the car. The fireball is visible 2 blocks away. Frank survives only because his specific Cadillac model has a metal plate beneath the driver's seat. The plate deflects the blast downward. Pure chance. Nobody is ever charged. Frank leaves Las Vegas 6 months later and never comes back. The trials run from 1984 to 1986. Glick testifies for days. His testimony is consistent, detailed, corroborated by wiretaps and documents. The juries convict everyone. Ayupa gets 28 years, Civella gets 20 years, Balistrieri gets 13 years. Combined sentences for all defendants, 230 years. The bosses and underbosses of 4 mafia families go to federal prison. Tony Spilotro does not make it to trial. In June 1986, someone calls him and his brother Michael to a meeting in Indiana. They are told it is a promotion ceremony. Instead, both brothers are beaten to death and buried in a cornfield. The outfit's final accounting. The Stardust tries to survive. The Boyd family buys it in 1985 and adds a tower in 1990. Vegas is changing. The mega resorts are coming. Steve Wynn opens the Mirage with a volcano, the Luxor, the Excalibur, the MGM Grand. Each property bigger and more expensive. The Stardust represents old Vegas. $6 rooms and cheap buffets. New Vegas wants whales and convention groups. By 2006, the land is worth more than the building. Boyd announces the Stardust will close. March 13th, 2007, thousands gather to watch the implosion. A 4-minute fireworks show lights the sky. Then 428 pounds of explosives detonate. The towers collapse. More than 500,000 tons of concrete and steel fall. The dust cloud rises like a mushroom and hangs in the air for 20 minutes before disappearing into the desert wind. Today, a new resort called Resorts World stands where the Stardust once was. It cost $4.3 billion. Inside, near the entrance, they installed a replica of the Stardust sign. Not the original, but a tribute. An acknowledgement that this ground has history. The Stardust never became what Tony Cornero dreamed. It became something else. The counting room, where millions vanished. The testimony that destroyed 4